So circumcision, for the first century, it was a hot topic. And by Paul's day, it had lost its simple, what I call surgical meaning, and it had taken on a socio-religious meaning. And I think that goes a long way towards helping us understand the book of Galatians. Instead of being a sign of the Abrahamic covenant, like we read about in Genesis 17:9 through 14, and Leviticus 12:3, circumcision became code word for Jewish ethnicity. It became a circumlocution, kind of a metonym, a way of speaking of the Jewish people without actually saying Jewish people. You could just say the circumcised, or they of the circumcision faction. And circumcision also was one of the key requirements in first century Judaism for conversion to Judaism for Gentiles who were not born Jewish. So circumcision itself was being leveraged as the deciding factor of who was a Jew and who wasn't a Jew. It was one of the ingredients. Quite simply, I say on my commentary, it was being misused by the Judaisms of Paul's day to seal the deal for Gentile proselytes wishing to be counted as legally recognized Jews and therefore, quote, righteous, end quote, Israelites in the Jewish communities. That sentence that I just read there is, in my understanding, one of the keys to understanding the book of Galatians itself, right? Understanding that circumcision was one of the key requirements for conversion helps us to gain a better appreciation for the consternation that it caused Paul when he started swimming upstream, when he started swimming against the mainstream theological position that the Torah was for Jews only, that covenant membership was for Jews only, that God was the God of the Jews only, that circumcision turned a Gentile into a Jew, etc., etc. All of those theological beliefs were being tossed around in the first century, and Paul had to combat all of that with the genuine gospel. That genuine covenant membership was granted to anyone who had faith in Yeshua, not to those who became Jews. Let's keep reading. This was quite upsetting, this concept of Gentile proselytism for the ostensible sake of becoming a covenant member. This was quite upsetting to Paul because the Torah, the law, prescribed no such ceremony. There's nothing in the Torah that is commanded that Gentiles that Gentiles become Jews for the ostensible sake of becoming covenant members. Nothing like that exists in the Torah. This is completely man-made. Proselyte conversion was entirely a man-made rubric and an unnecessary one at that. Paul taught, all right, listen up, Paul taught that believing Gentiles and Jews were both genuine covenant members, and both, top of page 72, both were covenant bound to follow Torah, including circumcision. So it's very simple. Because both Jew and Gentile in Messiah are covenant members, and because the Torah is for covenant members, then it stands to reason, using my syllogism here, that Torah is for covenant. Torah is for Jews and Gentiles. And I think that's a better way to understand Paul. It's a better way to understand the scriptures as a whole, because it doesn't teach that the Torah is for Jews only, and it doesn't teach that covenant membership is for Jews only. We don't end up with this bilateral ecclesiology where we supposedly have two people groups of God, a Jewish people group of God following the Torah, and a Gentile Christian people group of God following the supposed New Testament. That type of theology only leads to confusion when it comes to trying to understand the biblical narratives, the biblical promises, the biblical prophecies, and consequently the book of Galatians as a whole. So, let's keep reading. Paul only dissuaded. So you're probably asking this question, well, if Galatians is not about Paul trying to get the Gentiles to stop trying to keep Torah for the sake of salvation, then what exactly is the book of Galatians about? Why did he warn them away from circumcision? Well, let's keep reading. Paul only dissuaded circumcision in Galatians due to Jewish misuse of this God-given sign. There's nowhere hinted in the Torah itself that a prophet is going to come along or an apostle is going to come along later on and begin to remove parts of Torah at will. Instead, what Paul is doing is he's exercising the right of halakha. He's exercising the right, in my opinion, of group policy by taking circumcision not away from Torah, but rather moving it to back burner status. That's what I mean by dissuading circumcision in Galatians. He's simply going to take it out of focus. He's going to put it on the back burner while the Gentile Christians can better get their get a better understanding of what it means to be a covenant member. Once they gain that appreciation of genuine covenant membership via faith in Yeshua, then we can bring circumcision back into the discussion because we haven't misunderstood it. Makes sense? I think it makes sense.